I know what he looks like.
Giga Chad was a priest. I don't know if, maybe I'm not thinking of the same Mike Schmitz then.
He's the Bible in a year guy.
Oh, okay. I know where we're going.
Yeah.
I've got it now. Well, it's a good thing I've already started recording. So
awesome. I assume this is all going in, right?
Well, at least a little bit. I think I started the recording somewhere in the middle of Giga Chad Priest, Mike Schmitz. So we're gonna have to.
I thought we were recording earlier than that. I've been on this whole time.
You've been on this whole time.
Yeah, for the last 45 minutes, I've been giving the performance of my life, and now you only just now hit record. I can't. Well,
that's funny because we've only been on for about the last 15. So, and that wasn't even counting your caffeine break.
Camera. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Whatever.
Oh boy. Well, welcome in everybody. Welcome on in. It is Unauthorized Caucus time. It's caucus time. We're changing a few things up. Okay.
And now it's always caucus time.
It's always caucus time. We're going to change a few things. Obviously, I guess let's do this. First of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Happy 2025. We've already done one episode this year. We're going to get back to it though weekly, trying to grind it out here after the holidays, getting back to it. St. Louis has had a lot of snow, which is why we are not sitting in the same room together. There's a snowmageddon earlier this week, and no one knew what to do with it, especially the highway departments. And now we're getting another dusting, which looks fine. But on a Friday when other people are slipping off the road, we decided not to gather together, but instead to just work on our computers separately instead of together, which we always work on our computers. So there you go.
Yep. I slipped down the road. I got in my car and
you got stuck going to the gym.
No, getting to the gym was the easy part. I was going to drop off the kid, but then because I didn't think I went out real early before, and it didn't seem that bad. I was touching the snow and messing with it, and I was like, yeah, I could drive in this. And then by the time I'm leaving, I pull out of the parking spot and nope, can't drive in it. Can't get over the little hump on my hill. So, but the gym is at the bottom of the hill, so I would just put my car in reverse and just stick my head out the window and glide back to the gym. My car is still there.
Well, that's how it goes. Yeah, this snow today, it's pretty, but it looks only maybe slick if you're on a hill. So if it's plowed, all the roads out there, it is what it is. If you have the ability to work from home, I feel for everyone who doesn't. You have to physically be there. Your job is not computer based. I feel for you because it's a little slick and a little crazy, but we nonetheless are not used to this here in the Midwest. So we march on, but we've had a lot of big stuff here, of course, around the Phyllis Schlafly Eagles world. Ed Martin is moving on. We've talked about this, I think, Mason. I don't remember. Did we talked about this before? I think that Ed Martin, president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, you all know him. If you're on our mailing list, you're likely on our email list. But he has been selected as the next chief of staff for the Office of Management and Budget. So Russ Vogt is moving in. He was the director of OMB for the last year, I think, of the Trump administration, 2020 to 2021. And he is now nominated again to serve as the next director of OMB. Russ, what is it? The Center for Renewing America, Center for American Renewal. I always forget which word is which way around. But he has just absolutely kicked butt and taken names the last 2, 3, 4 years outside of the administration. He is coming back as the director of OMB. Ed is going in as his chief of staff. So Ed is transitioning out of the Eagles for now. He'll always be an Eagle. He'll always be connected. He may be back around in the future. But in the meantime, for our day jobs, we've been a little busy, a little hectic. So Unauthorized Caucus has taken a little bit of a hit. It's pushed to Friday now twice. It's not Thursdays anymore. So we may just make some changes permanent here. This is your call. If you're listening to this on the podcast, if you are watching this video on Rumble, whatever it is you're doing, make sure you go to unauthorizedcaucus.com, sign up there for our email list. That's the Substack. That's how you're going to get all the information, because we're going to make some changes, I think, switch up the format, move it. It'll still be weekly. We're still going to bring you the same kind of format, but we're going to change a few things around it. So I want to make sure you get all the notifications. And then a side note, while you're there, head on over to Eagle Ed Martin at Substack, eagleedmartin.substack.com. Find Ed's Substack. That's going to be doing some changes because obviously it was built around the Pro America Report radio program, which he's going to leave behind for now. But there is a good place to keep a hold of Ed Martin while he is moving into his new position in the Trump administration. So do that as well. But unauthorizedcaucus.com. If you're on Rumble, hit the big green button, subscribe there. You can always feel free to do a bigger subscription if you'd like on Rumble or Substack. We would appreciate your support. We have a lot of really good ideas that are coming down the pike here in 2025. Lots of changes that are coming that I think are going to be very good. So just the heads up there. If you're used to the whole live at noon on Thursday thing, I think 2025, Mason, this sounds like the year that we're going to change.
Project 2025.
Yes, Project 2025. Project fiscal year.
Now
Project
you can't hit me anymore.
Say what?
Now you can't hit me anymore like last week when I said Project 2025 and you start.
You think that I'm in my house, but what if I'm outside yours?
Yeah, well, enjoy the snow. Make a snowman for me.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not. Yeah, Project 2025, year 2025 for all you normies. We are going to make some changes. This is one of them. So keep an eye here on the Rumble channel, on our website, on the Substack page. You want to make sure you're involved. But that's that. There's a lot of stuff going on this week. Many things. But the biggest one is the topic I wanted to talk about with you. I brought it to you and you're like, okay, we can talk about that. And then is it accurate to say that I just kind of dropped a little bit of my truth bomb on you and you were just like, you want to what? Like, I'm going to have to go and look some of this stuff up okay. So I was the vastly more conspiratorial one on this where I'm just, everyone goes, oh, look, what's happening in California? Oh, there's wildfires. And Ryan's over here going globalists. This is what I see, but I think there's a lot to talk about here. So the wildfires going on in Malibu, Los Angeles County. There are a lot of different sections to talk about on this, and we will cover most of them. I mean, there's absolute garbage response coming in from a terrible state government, probably the most inept, ineffective government of any of the 50 states. The response from them is absolutely terrible. The economic policy, the ecological policy, all of it is garbage. Specifically in Los Angeles, they're dealing with some woke nonsense as far as who's in charge of leading the actual fire department and the response to this. But then what's most interesting to me, and the third part you may not have thought of or heard about, is why this is happening, what happened, what kicked it off, and what's going to be done after it. Because almost regardless of who started the fire, there's this, that song. Who started the fire?
I don't think that's how it goes. I think
not how it goes.
You're getting "Who Let the Dogs Out" confused with "We Didn't Start the Fire," which are two distinct songs.
No. It was just a reference to the song. I wasn't quoting the exact.
But was it a reference
of the
to
song.
"Who Let the Dogs Out" or "We"?
No, it was a reference to. It was a reference to who started the fire. Don't quote the deep magic to me, Zoomer. I was there when it was written. Okay, to quote the not that great movie version of Narnia. Now that we're deep into the weeds on media references, but although Liam Neeson as Aslan was pretty good, I enjoyed that part. But the books are better. Go read the whole books, all 7. But no, so it doesn't matter who started the fire, or honestly, I'm going to spin off as we get to this part of the conversation in how the hurricanes happened down in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. It almost doesn't matter how they started or if anyone did anything to soup it up, but the response to them has been very interesting. And that's something that needs to be discussed in a much greater way. If you follow me on my radio program or any of the other things, you may have heard me cover some of this before. I'm going to reference a few other resources today that you need to go and follow for this. But yeah, there we go. So fire. What's your 30,000 foot view of all what's going on, Mason? And is there anything else you want us to cover before we get into the primary topic at hand today? Because there are, like I said, a lot of things going on.
Yeah. So the fire thing seems bad, is bad. They caught a suspect, and the suspect does not look like his parents or great grandparents fought in the Civil War, if you catch my drift. He looks more like either his parents came across the border or he recently came across the border. And knowing it's California, I kind of lean to the latter, that this is probably an illegal immigrant that, you import the third world, you become the third world. People just start fires in the third world, like South Africa, where they're tearing apart power transformers for the oil so they can cook with it. That's what America is becoming. And this is just a little bit of that mixed with a little bit of the late stage bureaucratic entropy that creates completely incompetent buffoons in all positions of power and distributes the power to all of them, so nobody's able to do anything. And then and then people just, it's this whole circus of doing things that make you feel good and making it look like you're working, that you make yourself feel important. But yeah, my read of this isn't it. I'm not buying that there was any sort of directed energy weapons like Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying about Hawaii. Like, I don't think that our greatest ally is shooting lasers from space at Hawaii and California. Like that.
It's not the Jewish space lasers. Are you
Yeah,
sure?
I don't think it's that. And I also really, I mean, I'm very skeptical that this is some sort of plot. That this was on purpose. And I don't think that, responding to a situation like this with new urban developments is proof that there was a plot. I just think that's what you would normally do if a bunch of stuff is destroyed and a bunch of land gets cleared in the third biggest city in the United States. You start building new stuff pretty quick. At least that's what I would do. So yeah, I mean, I did my best to do some research on any potential tomfoolery going on in here, and the only thing I found that seemed somewhat credible was there was this lady named where'd her name go? Catherine Austin Fitz, former housing and urban development official, as well as a former Wall Street investment banker. So housing and urban development. She knows a thing or two about urban development. Clip from her last year, she's kind of describing how, well, it's a very, very interesting clip, which we will definitely link. And I sent it to you earlier, Ryan. I don't know if you got the chance to look at it.
I've got it here.
She didn't exactly seem to be. Do you want to play it for the wonderful viewers? Is there something we can do on Video Ninja?
Yes, that is something we can do, I believe, on Video Ninja. Hold on. Let me get it. And I may throw this into post just to make sure. Where is the message from you? Oh, scroll up. One more. Scroll up. Here we go.
Because you saw this in California, you have these homes that are devastated, and then you come up and there's infrastructure that's totally untouched, and then there's some big hotel and it's absolutely touched, and then you go on and there's it's all burned down. So when you look at the drone shot, I think it was the drone shot you published with the description of GIS, you see that this is a GIS designed burn. I mean, this is a clearing. And what I have to tell you is, if you were going to have to buy that land or do it with eminent domain or do it through the local zoning and ordinance and planning and city council process, it would take you a decade or two to accumulate that land or get any of this done. So you not only speed up the process enormously, you skyrocket your return on investment, because your initial investment is so low and the redevelopment can go so fast.
Yeah.
So if you look at these things as sort of a leverage buyout on a neighborhood, I used to write a lot about leverage buyouts of a neighborhood, but if you look at what it does to the economics of the leverage it's phenomenal, because you so lower your money in. And then the speed is everything. You can really speed up, and then you've got everything cleared at the same time. It's just go. So now we see that, because it's not just fire that does these things. If you look at what happened in Katrina, there are a lot of people I met from New Orleans when I went the next time after Katrina who said, yeah, they blew the levees, and I think it was 77 or 78, and they blew the levees this time. So it's done with fire, it's done with with water, so with flooding. We saw it done during the pandemic with riots. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah, so I don't know how much I buy that. I mean, just out of everything I looked into on this lady seems the most credible out of anybody that's kind of pushing that there's a more conspiratorial angle to this. which, like, yeah, maybe that's going on, and it's possible. I mean, some people taking advantage of the
Sure.
system and like using this the GIS. She doesn't explain it there, but that's geographic information systems, which is, you know, the government's kind of data about geography and natural disasters, predicting those sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, everything that people say is like weird about this. I think there are some simpler explanations for everything that's weird about it. So I don't know. Maybe it was Klaus Schwab. He was there setting the fire himself, and like he's going to build I don't know, a vaccine manufacturing plant that also people live in, and you breathe fluoride. But I'm not so sure about that.
Well, and let me say, by the way, on your idea, the potential fire setter in LA, you know, I saw the same thing, that there was, and actually I saw a lot of stuff. Here's, in fact, the New York Post has it. They arrested a homeless man. So they say a homeless man with a flamethrower was busted on suspicion of arson. And this was really near the Kenneth fire. Each one of these fires has a different name because they're springing up so quickly. But interestingly enough, you look at this guy was seen riding around Woodland Hills on a bicycle, setting fire to several old Christmas trees, garbage cans. But as you go down into it, and this is the New York Post coming out with this, it's not necessarily strange, weird sources online, but I'm starting to see a bunch of people pile on. There are many interesting, suspicious guys with gasoline, with little blowtorches rolling around when they're found. I'm hearing rumors, I don't know, this part's unconfirmed, that there are multiple cell phones, that they've got prepaid debit cards. The one guy I think you're talking about was from Guatemala. And yet I saw Los Angeles Police Department said there's no probable probable cause. Whew, man, we'll get that one out. There's no probable cause to charge the man walking around with the large blowtorch. So, I mean, I guess he was just, you know, probably lighting up a cigarette or something. But he was detained by residents, but they said, yeah, there's not enough probable cause. So he was arrested on a felony probation violation instead of arson. So we're not going to charge him with arson. I'm like, what the heck? He's rolling around with a freaking blowtorch in the middle of all this, and people saw him doing stuff. So all of it is very suspicious. And I have no doubt in my mind that there's, I mean, just like looters hop into the path of a hurricane. Obviously the looters didn't bring the hurricane so that they could loot. Looters are looting everywhere in Los Angeles as well. There are a lot of people taking advantage of this situation.
Yeah.
But as much weird stuff as there is with it, to me, well, okay, let me put it this way. Whether it is purposefully being started by people like Klaus Schwab is running around with a blowtorch himself, or if California's nonsense, if their insistence on not having good forestry habits, their insistence on pumping every bit of water back into the ocean and not having anything. Do you see the reservoir, the one primary reservoir near one of these, it's like 117 million gallons or something, was empty and offline in the middle of a California dry season. They haven't been filling their reservoirs. So it's no wonder when all of the lesbians of the Los Angeles Fire Department can't get enough water to come out of the, you know, fire hydrants, because there's such bad policy and has been for a long time. And it's nothing to do with some sort of drought in California. It's everything to do with absolute insanity on the environmental policy out of Gavin Newsom and, frankly, people long before him, even in California, doing radical things to make sure when these disasters come up, not only are they fed by natural fuel when we should have forested better, and not only are they not able to fight it with water because of bad ecological, you know, we're going to throw it all out because of a tiny fish, we're going to stop this dam, or we're going to pump this back out into the ocean, whatever it is. But they are, in fact, ready with one thing, and it is all of the smart city, 15-minute city, all the different things there. This is where I get into it on this side. So to your point, I don't know if they're running around with blowtorches or if they're ready to take advantage of the situation. But I mean, from North Carolina to Florida to the Lahaina fires out in Maui, Hawaii, now we're here in California. The stuff that happens afterward, that raises my suspicions very much so. Whether it's being done, being allowed to happen, does it matter? You know, we know who to blame. I mean, that's that. But I'll pause to give you, a response before I go into anything else. I got a couple other things pulled up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's immediately apparent that the ban on controlled burning, lack of water reservoirs, like you said, and I, how much money they spent on DEI and the fire department, and I assume you saw that fire department informational video where it has a very let's say I would be scared if this woman was charging at me, this female firefighter, but she probably could not pick me up, but she could run me over. Um, and she is descended from somewhere else, and she says the words like, people are like, would you be able to carry my husband in the event of a fire? And she's like, your husband probably should have not gotten into that situation. It's like, okay, these are the firefighters you're employing. Like this is the people that in the
Which
citizens time of need.
let me
And
let
well,
me
yeah, go ahead.
no, well, let me just remind, because this is, you're talking about this. Let me specifically say the people in charge of the Los Angeles fire response, there are three specifically. Well, there's four actually, three inside the fire department. All three of them, in fact, are lesbians named Kristen. Let me just lay this out for you. Christina Crowley, Christina with a K, first LGBTQ fire chief, Los Angeles Fire Department, salary $439,000 plus. Christina Kepner, the first lesbian assistant chief of the LAFD, $264,000 plus salary. And then Christine with a K Larson, the first Black lesbian equity bureau chief of the Los Angeles Fire Department, $399,000 salary. Again, these are numbers from the internet. I haven't gotten the actual documents from LA, but this is coming out of credible sources online, not just anonymous accounts, but big name reporters for a lot of credible places that don't post garbage. This one's actually coming straight from Turning Point USA. But by the way, the Equity Bureau chief makes more than the assistant chief at the LAFD. That's wild. And then the fourth, by the way, is your other fun DEI hire. The water department chief for the city, Janice Quinones, earns almost $800,000 annually.
Wow. I need to get into the DEI business.
Yeah, wouldn't you know it, by the way, the city cut funding for the fire department. Despite all these big salaries, the fire department has actually been cut, but they allocated a lot of money to the gay choirs, trans cafes, and social justice art projects that were still in their line items. So let it be known that the gay choirs will still continue to bombard us with songs online, but the Los Angeles Fire Department lesbians can't get water out of the fire hydrants. So there you go. Those are the names and the salaries of the people you're talking about. Sorry, go ahead. I just had my little information I had to drop in there.
Next up, addresses. No, I'm just kidding.
No. I'm not here for doxing people. I would be willing to bet. I have to wonder. Let me put it this way. I got to wonder, are any of these four people missing their homes? Because there's certainly a lot of celebrities that have been affected by this, but we'll see. Oh, sorry. I'll let you continue. I broke in there. I had the specifics I figured you might enjoy.
Yeah, well, that's exactly my point, that they've really been focusing on the wrong things. And I think that does explain directly a big part of what is happening. Like, we don't know exactly why it started. It seems like it was arson. It could be a gang of homeless people. It could be terrorism. It could be the World Economic Forum. And I do think that the last of those is the least likely. But I think we just don't have enough information to say one way or another. And I think it's very easy to just fit this into whatever narrative you already kind of like to understand the world through. But then sometimes you're not always right. And sometimes things aren't, you say things aren't as they seem. Like, that's the conspiracy theorist line, but then you're like, but this seems like it's part of my conspiracy theory. And it's like, no, not necessarily. Like, sometimes things just burn, and this is a really bad one. And I more and more, I'm leaning on the side of understanding what's going on in the world around us through the lens of, we just have a very bad system and very incompetent people working in a completely ineffectual system. Rather than it's actually a very effective system that's very good at doing things that seem like another thing. And, and these people are very good at propaganda, but they're not covering up their secret plots. They're more so covering up we are doing a terrible job at what we're doing.
And they're not covering it very well, but you're right. That's the primary cover up.
Yeah. Well, which I mean, this is the other piece of big news, but yeah, it's like the British government has spent more effort on propaganda to say that the grooming gang scandal hasn't happened than it's spent on actually investigating it, and that is like one of the most atrocious things I've ever heard of. What's going on in the UK right now?
Yeah.
Um,
That's a whole episode in and of itself. Maybe
mhm.
that's what we should cover next week, because I don't know if people have actually heard enough about that. Like these things here on our stateside, we hear about this stuff. Although to your point, I don't know if this matters so much who actually did it. Like who set the fire or who allowed the conditions for these kinds of fires to spin up. I'm suspicious because I have seen way too many of these fires just pop up out of absolutely nowhere, literally instantly on camera. I've seen some of them spin up. It just seems strange. Now, I don't live in a very dry climate like this, but I have to wonder, how does a fire start out of nothing? Like, what happens? Is it really just that dry to where if one spark from somebody's campfire gets out of hand? I have a hard time believing that. Now, the conditions to spread the fire quickly makes total sense to me, although I'm not a resident of these mountain areas that have such dry, high fire conditions. But at that point, it doesn't so much matter when, if Gavin Newsom is setting the fires or setting the conditions for when a fire starts for it to just wholesale destroy everything because they're not ready for it. I don't know if it so much matters as why they're okay with it, not who did it physically with their hand. And why they're okay with it. This is where I launch off into my side. I'm seeing a bunch of them, and here's, I've got there's a lot of internet speak moving around about World Economic Forum insiders talking about whether it's engineered or this or that. But I tell you what, whether it's engineered for it or whether it's just an opportunist move, what is happening after any of these disasters, whether we're talking about the Lahaina fires out in Maui, we're talking about the Western North Carolina response of Hurricane Helene, we're talking about now all the fires in Malibu in California, what happens is a land grab for new, modern, engineered, technologically centered cities. Here's what I want to, you want to look this up and know, this is kind of like when we talked about cloud seeding and all of the geoengineering that's going on. You and I would say cloud seeding, and the left would just immediately, oh, you crazy conspiracists, there's no such thing as cloud seeding. But you go and look and say, well, then what the heck is atmospheric aerosol insertion? You're literally doing cloud seeding and you're just calling it something different. Why are you geoengineering? We're not geoengineering. Okay, fine. Climate intervention. Oh, yeah, we do that. Yeah, it's the same dang thing. They're just changing the words. So here's one of the left's words you need to look up. Go and start to get familiar with 15-minute cities. In fact, if you do an internet search for the term 15-minute cities, you're probably going to find some stuff from Bloomberg, from Forbes, talking about it from a technology perspective. But I guarantee you, most likely on the first page of your search results is going to be a link to the World Economic Forum, weforum.org. You're going to find a big story from 2021. And here's what they say about it. This is what the WEF and a lot of other places, oh, it's good. Look how good it is. The 15-minute city meets human needs but leaves desires wanting. Here's why. And then they talk about reorganizing urban space around work, home, community, and amenities. The idea that every need is fulfilled within a 15-minute walk or a short bike ride. Various cities around the world have begun to embrace the 15-minute city approach. Urban life is about more than access to amenities. The 15-minute model risks excluding disadvantaged communities. Oh, we're going to exclude the disadvantaged rural communities. We need to bring them in. Even if there's a 15-minute baseline, great city centers with world-class experience, blah, blah, blah. And now, really what you start to see is this. Well, since COVID, we've realized how dangerous it is for people to live out on their own and to be in the rural areas separated from all of these services. We want to bring you in. And you suddenly start to think, wait a minute, I've read this dystopian novel before where we remove rural land living, we remove land ownership, we move people to giant city centers, we burn down and replace, burn down. We burn out single family homes and we replace it with apartments. And I mean, this is the same thing that you're seeing, you and I, as we live in suburbia. I hear all the time, slow, smart growth from a lot of the conservatives in county government. They don't like big apartment complexes coming in because all of a sudden you just have this massive explosion of population and the roads and the traffic and the other essential services of a city haven't grown as quickly in proportion to meet the sudden giant need. So it's a really good way to shove people into city centers. It's a really good way to remove private property and ownership. And that's a whole separate episode to talk about all of the problems. Let me just throw out a couple of names. Again, I'm kind of giving you, as I smack my microphone, I'm kind of giving you some research stuff to go into. You want to know about how this plays out with land ownership? You need to start looking up the Bureau of Land Management, the other BLM, not the rioters, the Bureau of Land Management and the Bundy ranchers. You want to talk about some really interesting stuff out in the West. It blows my mind when I look at the maps of how much land is owned by the federal government, because we just don't deal with that out here. We have a few national parks and forests, but you get west of the Rockies and like the government owns 80 something percent of Nevada. They own 70 something percent of Arizona. It's absolutely wild. And sure, some of these are Department of Defense things. A lot of it's Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Indian Affairs. Federal government ownership of land west of the Rockies is a big deal. And when you see this kind of stuff happen, often what happens is, and here's one of the fun ones, again, another pretty decent source, Shadow of Ezra is one of my favorite follows on X, because it's conspiratorial, but it often ends up being pretty well connected. And I saw a bunch of rumblings in that side of the world starting to talk about there is already rumors and documents flying around that the Pacific Palisades, this big section of what is this? Is that technically Malibu, I think? The Pacific Palisades is already being planned with developers for a rezoning. And Newsom and his administration, or folks down the line in his administration, are already pushing to change the zoning of Pacific Palisades from R1, which is single family homes, to a mix of R1 and R3, which would pave the way for multifamily homes and complexes, apartment complexes. So we're seeing the push for, again, go and look up 15-minute cities. And the interesting thread that you see here is the same thing in Florida after Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene. A lot of the destruction, when they come back in, look at what's happening with the zoning, look at what's happening with who's buying what developers are purchasing it. And instead of single family homes, instead of personal land ownership, what you're seeing is a big push toward the 15-minute city idea, new amenities, new city centers, apartment complexes. And then the same thing happens. Western North Carolina. Now that one's got some interesting stuff to search down, because you very quickly start to find out about deposits of rare earth minerals and different things that are very lucrative to a lot of corporations who are looking to buy portions of Western North Carolina, or eminent domain portions of North Carolina, Western North Carolina, instead of it going back to the people who own the land, who were just wiped off the face of the map, their property, houses gone from the mountain communities. So in each of these situations, again, did they do it, or did they just set up the conditions to be ready for it and respond accordingly? There is a globalist land grab at the end of it. And that's the really concerning part that needs to be fought back against with every fiber of your being. This makes me wonder what all the celebrities who lost their mansions and homes, if this nonsense, if rezoning and stuff comes through with them. I haven't had a chance to even research the whole fire insurance, the whole fire insurance, homeowners insurance coverage. Have you looked at that yet?
Yeah. I mean, that's really just a matter of
give us a rundown on what happened there, because I saw a lot of that about, how convenient it was that homeowners fire insurance was stripped away several months ago. And again, I fully expect some things are just that conspiratorial. Other things are coincidental. Then again, I don't really believe in that many coincidences, although there are a few.
Well, I mean, I don't
what about
think
that, Mason?
This isn't really conspiratorial or coincidental. California doesn't allow insurance companies to raise premiums. But if you think about what a premium is in insurance, it's essentially a price on the risk that they're taking in. And State Farm was at the brunt of this, which State Farm is a little different than a lot of insurance companies in that State Farm holds 100% of their risk and like liquid cash balances, whereas a lot of insurance companies do like 30% of their risk. So, which, that works out fine for a lot of them, but if there's like a huge disaster and you have to pay out everybody, that can really hurt the insurance company. So State Farm holds on to 100% of the money. So it's like, if everybody's house gets destroyed, they can pay off everybody's insurance claims. which I think is, a smart thing for an insurance company to do. But because they can't price the risk effectively, because California makes it illegal, when they're able to forecast like, oh wow, these are terrible conditions that would make it super easy for a fire to happen. If California didn't have that law, the insurance premiums would have just gone up, and people would have still had their insurance, and they would have been paying for the fact that they live in a high risk area for fires, which is normal. But State Farm couldn't do that, so they did the next reasonable thing, where it's like, okay, we're canceling your plan because it doesn't make economic sense for us to cover you. So I don't think that that's like that's conspiratorial, really. I mean, you could call that they conspired, but then you're calling pretty much any business decision conspiracy. Yeah, it makes pretty basic sense to me that I would do the same if I was an insurance executive.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm also wide open to any conspiracies, so I'm gonna withhold judgment on that one, because maybe. But here, let me say this though. When it comes to this kind of stuff, I think we all know how terrible Gavin Newsom is. I wanted to say Carolina, the California government response here, the DEI and woke garbage that has just rotted out anything in Los Angeles and Los Angeles County, the fire department, what they've done environmentally with horrible policies across California. All of this makes sense. What you're watching is what happens when the inevitable comes, some sort of disaster of a nature kind. I'm not saying natural. Hear me make a distinction there. Nature kind of disaster. The reality is what's happening. I think what we're seeing is, more often than not, these land grabs are a result of globalist interests, organizations, NGOs, nonprofits. What these folks have to do is go down to a municipal level in order to enact some of their agenda, because in general, the United States hasn't signed on to all that many treaties at the UN level. A few of them, but there's always a lot of pushback because those get a lot of notoriety. So one thing I would tell you is I've really started to look into it much more recently, that what happens with the globalist elite is they go down to the state, county, and city level to get a lot of places to sign on to some of these policies and these plans and perspectives. I mean, go look at what's happening right now in the UK. You'll actually find a bunch of 15-minute city plans that different cities are signing on to, which says, okay, we're going to shift our policies and our resources to start moving toward this plan. Well, if the United Nations or whatever NGO is working on some of these different, push everyone into the city centers, remove private ownership of land, all this different stuff, if they can't get a nation to move on that, maybe they can get individual cities or counties to do that. I think California is case in point, because you see a lot of that stuff happening there. Same thing in Florida. Florida, a red state, had nothing at the state level that was worrisome in their hurricane responses, but some of the cities that dealt with it, especially in some of the Tampa area and different things, you started to see some of the same stuff, some of the same bad actors that are involved in land grabs, that are involved in 15-minute city planning, all of the things that swoop in and remove ownership, personal property and private ownership of things. They were immediately at work, and that should send off all of your alarm bells in a really important way. So I'll reserve my closing point, because I don't have a whole lot more on this except a closing point about the whole kind of everything in general across society when it comes to private ownership. What else, Mason, did you have, or have we largely covered?
I think we've covered it. I didn't bring anything else. Yeah.
Well, we might leave it there then, but here's what I'll say. And I was putting this out, to someone who's just asking me, hey, what about that? Like, what do you mean by all of this land grab stuff? And I said, think about it. In our, what are we looking at a 30,000 foot view here in America? We are fighting a battle against Marxist forces that are trying to centralize everything, centralize every decision that you make, that your government makes, that happens to you, ends up being removed from you as a decision and given to someone else. It really is just about as sinister as all of those dystopian 1984 style novels that you've ever read when it comes to centralized control of your life, control of what you can say, what you can do, all the way down, finally, the last level, what you think. We're seeing bits and pieces of all of that, because what mankind wants to control another. Welcome to sin nature. What man will do to other men is terrible. And in this way specifically, we see this kind of thing play out across society. Let me give you the warning. This is not just when we look at the Lahaina fires or the North Carolina response, or now all of the fires in Malibu, Pacific Palisades, what's happening there. What comes in afterward may have to do with land and zoning and 15-minute cities. But let me give the warning that private ownership of anything is extremely important. And largely as a society, in the name of convenience, we have been moved away from private ownership. Think about it. 150 years ago, people carried around gold and silver coins. Our monetary policy has shifted away to, well, we have centralized banks with centralized control of all of that, and you have a piece of paper that signifies your portion of it, but you don't actually physically own it. Now we've moved to digital currency. Now and all of this ties into what? No privacy, no personal ownership or control. You don't physically own it. But it's not just that, it's everything else. They want you to sign up for streaming services now for movies and music. You don't actually own the movies and music. Purchase this physical item or even a digital physical file per se and download it. Clothing, rental services with boxes. I mean, it's one thing to rent a tuxedo for your kid who's not going to fit in it. It's another when people are, and it's real. Go and look it up. Rental clothing services. You know what I'm talking about, Mason. These box services are out there.
I haven't tried that. No,
you haven't tried it, but you know it exists, right?
No, this is the first I'm hearing of it.
This is the first you're hearing of it. Well, it's true. Hold on. Rental clothing box service. There's a subscription box service for this.
That's crazy.
No, but listen, here it is. 13 best clothing subscription boxes, but it's armoire.style. This is clothing rental made easy. Rental for every you. Rent from a personalized rental closet of designer brands. You take the quiz, choose your styles, wear and enjoy, and swap it out. I see clothing rental services, streaming services, moving toward, you don't need to own a vehicle. You just need a bicycle. We'll use public transit. At each of these points, what are they taking away? You're taking away my ability to privately own property, to privately own a vehicle, a gas-based vehicle, which means freedom to go about wherever I want, as long as I can carry enough gas with me to keep putting it in the tank. We want to take that away and move to electric vehicles. We want to take away all of the private ownership of vehicles, move to public transit. You don't need to live that far out with your own property. Move into a high-rise here, and we're here. I mean, what are we looking at? This is like a communist society. We're moving everyone in so that we just nationalize it all. You don't actually have to own anything. You just get it issued to you. And then we're all wearing our nice overalls and jumpers from the state, from the party in 1984. Here we are. No private ownership of anything. And I'm not like connecting wild threads here. This really is all, when you start to look at it, there is a move away from private ownership of anything, including stuff that doesn't matter, like your clothes. There's a move away from it. And I think that's a very deadly move that we are wholesale adopting because it's easy to use Apple Pay. It's easy to rent clothes I don't necessarily need long-term. It's fill in the blank easier to live in a 15-minute city. And I look at each one of these and say, whether they caused it or whether they're just opportunists, all of these disasters, they are seizing on the opportunity. And we, the people, are not understanding fully what's going on. There are very few, but we get just shoved into the conspiratorial corner. And really, we need to pipe up louder and start connecting the dots for other people, because this is a big deal. And again, response or cause, who knows? I'm not even really that worried about yelling about that, because we know what the result is, and the result is the problem, even if they're not the ones who caused it. Although if they are, we should throw everyone in jail, and I don't know, maybe a few public hangings for arson. Not that might be a little bit far. You got to make an example of people, though, to get this stuff stopped, so the ecological terrorists know to back off. I don't know. But that's my push. There's a big deal behind this for land grab, and really ultimately for the removal of private ownership of anything. And you see it across our society. We see it across these disasters out of nature. I find it extremely concerning and something we all need to know about a lot more.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay. We'll cut it off there, folks. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We'll roast some more lesbians next week. I'm kidding. We only did that today, and it was just high-paid lesbians. Although in California, that $400,000 salary probably doesn't get you very far anymore, depending on where you live. Yep. Probably making about what the rest of us do out here in the Midwest. But we'll do some more stuff next week. We've got a couple more topics coming up, and of course, lots of changes coming that you will want to know about. Go to unauthorizedcaucus.com, sign up for the emails there. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe wherever you are, especially on Rumble. That's where we get the videos up. And then, of course, if you're a podcast listener, please go wherever you get that podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and a review would be lovely. And of course, go and visit our sponsor, TRexInc.com. T-Rex has a lot of fun new stuff kicking off in 2025. They've been kind of quiet. We've been kind of quiet post-Christmas, but go to TRexInc.com. Use your promo code Caucus30. Get a great discount and support them. Let them know where you came from, because we appreciate their sponsorship of Unauthorized Caucus. Couldn't do it without them. They're great folks over there at T-Rex Inc. So that's it. Mason, I'll see you in the office next week.
Yep. And see you then.
See you then, everyone. We will see you next week for another installment of Unauthorized Caucus. Until then, have a good week, everybody.